What's up, you guys? Yep, the t-shirt's on. You've seen the title. Gotta wear, gotta be dressed appropriately for this. So I just got back, obviously, from seeing the Ant-Man movie. So I figured I'd get home real quick, do this video while the movie's still kind of fresh in my mind. Um, I gotta say, honestly, I didn't know how I'd feel about this movie because it's Ant-Man, it's shrinking. I don't know how much I'll really be into that, but I gotta say, I think they pulled it off wonderfully. I mean, it was so innovative. It was so cool to see him shrinking and regrowing, and the combat, the choreography. I think the fighting was one of my favorite parts in this movie. Was how innovative and how cool and how different it was than any of the other Marvel films. Honestly, I will say this is probably my second favorite standalone Marvel movie, not counting the Avengers. For me, it goes Iron Man, the first Captain America, this movie, and then the first Iron Man. So yeah, my personal favorite. So yeah, this is my second favorite. I think it was awesome. Um, just going over some of my thoughts on the movie. I think other than the fighting, my favorite part of the movie was the dynamic and the the dynamic between Hank Pym and his daughter and his wife. And I think them playing with that and the characterization of Hank was, I mean, because you wouldn't think Hank Pym would be that relevant in this movie. You know what I mean? You would think he would be kind of like a mentor to Scott. That's the guy who's actually playing Ant Man. You think he'd be a mentor to Scott? Kind of telling him the ropes. Being his moral compass. Showing him how to control the suit. But I didn't expect Hank Pym to be such a powerful force in this movie, and I love that they did that because it wasn't just about Scott. I think the movie was more about, in the beginning at least, the first half of this movie was about Hank, and the second half was then about Scott. But I think the first half was about Hank and how he had to deal with the guilt of having his wife involved in being Ant Man. And him and his wife will go out on missions together, and he feels guilty because his wife sacrificed her life to save the United States by defusing the bomb when she messed with, I forgot what they called that, that belt thing. The it just it when she messed with it, you shrink, you infinitely shrink. And you see it later on in the movie that when Scott did it, he just kept shrinking and shrinking. I mean, he was, I don't even know where he was at. I mean, like, it was the ether or something. I don't even know where that dark area he was at. Just, I mean, he existed in nothingness. And even Hank said, the only thing I found out over all these years of research after my wife dying is that we know nothing. And I think that was probably the strongest. For me, that was my favorite line of dialogue. One of the strongest, but that was my favorite part. It really shows that, humans, we think we know so much, but in the end of the day, still, we know nothing. And that was my favorite part of the dialogue. But I love how he dealt with Hank and how he got over his wife, and it showed why he doesn't want his daughter getting involved at all. Because he made a mistake in the past by letting his wife get involved, and he regrets it to this day. Why would he make that same mistake again by letting his daughter get involved? Now, I think the reason why he lets his daughter get involved in the end, people will say, why would he still let his daughter get involved? Well, remember that Scott found a way how to get back from, we call it the ether. That's what we'll call it for now. So Scott found a way to get back, and I think that kind of loosened him up a little bit. And I was like, well, it's not over. You know what I mean? So, and my daughter's been wanting to do this. I'm not going to hold her back anymore. And I think that was really strong too. I think that was a really good ending. But other than that, I love the dynamic between Hank, his daughter. For she doesn't really understand because she never knew how her mother died. She's upset because Hank doesn't let her wear the suit at all, even though she knows how to do everything. She's just wondering, why are you doing this? Hank finally explains to her why, and she understands him from that. And then you know the death of his wife, the guilt. It was all. I think it was all touching. It was all great. Um, I think that was a strong, by far the strongest part of the movie. The dynamic, surprisingly, you would think since it's an Ant Man movie, Scott's wearing the Ant Man suit, you think it'll be about Ant Man, but no, it was about Hank. And I think that was a smart move by Marvel. So that was my favorite part and the strongest part. The fighting was innovative. It was cool. It was something different. I thought that was awesome. The comedy in this movie, the Spanish Latino guy, Ti, and the Russian guy. Those guys were just hilarious. Just a bag of laughs. Great to have around. Um, and but we do get some developments and some characterization from Scott, with with the same as Hank with his daughter, and we see the dynamic between Scott and his daughter and how he screwed up and he's upset and he just wants to get his daughter back. He just wants to be a part of her life, but he can't find a job because he's an ex-con. So he obviously has, and when you can't find a job, you have to provide. So he figures, why not I steal? And that's how he gets him. He steals from Hank Pym's house, but instead in a safe, instead of a bunch of money and jewels, it's the Ant Man suit, and that's how he gets involved with the Ant Man suit and Hank that's been watching him all this time. But now let's get to the villain. The villain, I would have to say, is not the greatest. I wasn't that happy with the villain. Um, I don't I understand, him and Hank Pym not really kind of like his, not kind of like him and his daughter. You get the sense that they resented him in the past, since his daughter voted for him to be, you know, who voted for him off the board. But I get the feeling that he could have. I don't know what it is, and I'll think about this more. But there's something I felt that was missing from him. Maybe, and I don't think it was the writing. Honestly, for real, I don't think it was the writing. I think it was the actor. I don't think the actor portrayed what the writers were trying to get across as well as he could. Yeah, obviously, he's a good actor. I heard that he's been in some other things that are really good, but I think he's in House of Cards. I think he's in House of Cards. I think so. Don't quote me on that though. I think he's in House of Cards, but I don't think that he did the best job. I don't for that role specifically. I think the writing was. I think the right. I mean, it was cool. Hank Pym took on a protege, but Hank Pym noticed that the protege was kind of too much like him, so he kind of tried to wall him off from getting into the same trouble that he did. Obviously, he couldn't, and it kind of took over his mind. I think that's a fine premise for a villain. I think it was the acting really that turned me off. The guy was kind of creepy. He was kind of. He didn't seem, instead of seeing, damage and hurt and kind of curious about why Hank Pym was being the way he kind of portrayed it as, you know, revenge. And I think for this kind of villain, I don't think it's about revenge. For this specific villain that they were trying to write, I think it's about curiosity and first of all trying to be the best scientist you can, and about curiosity and about a little bit of resentment of why Hank Pym walled him off. Like, why? Curiosity, basically. Why are you doing this? Asking questions. Why are you walling me off? Why'd you? And he asked, "Why'd you shut me out?" But I felt like in that moment when he asked, "Why'd you shut me out?" to Hank in the room, I feel like that should have been, that moment was good. And I think that he should have been like that. He should have been more curious instead of seeing like this cocky, revenge thirsty guy. There's nothing wrong with those type of villains. Those villains are awesome. But I think in the context of the story, I don't think it was necessary for him to come off as like that. So I don't think it was necessarily right. I think it was the way the actor portrayed the villain was not what the story needed. And obviously, in the end, I still have questions of how um, the villain knew. I forget his name. Sorry, tell me in the comment section. Having a dirt moment. So many things on my mind, but I'm a little curious how the villain knew how to use the suit so well. You know what I mean? Now I would think that obviously he would practice a little bit, but we see that Scott has to practice a lot. He goes through a lot of training. The guy, I don't understand how the guy knew how to use the suit when they just figured out how to shrink living beings. So, and when they shrunk that sheep or that lamb, and so they just figured that out. I don't know how much of a time skip that was, but it's not a lot. It definitely is as much as Scott's been training. So I'm wondering how he knew how to use the suit so well. But obviously, I'm not gonna harp over that so much. That's just a minor. It's a review. You know, I'm critiquing the movie, so I have to bring that up. But other than that, guys, I love the movie. I think it's awesome. I'll see you guys later. Peace.